It's a great honor and a pleasure to welcome Dr. Mahesh Parikh, a renowned psychiatrist and psychotherapist. His degrees are in psychiatry and philosophy, MD in psychiatry and PhD in philosophy, and he has a thriving practice in both Mumbai and Gujarat. He has conducted several classes here on campus as well, and on psychology, and including how education should be in terms of unfolding children's potential. And I have attended many of those sessions and have benefited in terms of deepening my understanding of psychology and education. So it's a great honor and pleasure, sir, to have you here. And we'll just take a few moments to explore the real purpose of education. And I would like to hear from you your insights on this deeply relevant topic in terms of the child's growth and also nation's growth. Education is the foundation.
True.
And today, unfortunately, because of various circumstances, it has amounted to just finding employment after graduation. So my first question to you would be, and maybe also extracting from your research and study of Bhagavad Gita during your PhD in philosophy, what is the ultimate purpose of education? You know, in the light of especially Bhagavad Gita, given Krishna as the teacher and Arjuna as an ideal student.
Basically, the purpose of education is to provide the right environment for the unfoldment of the potential that each soul brings with it, so that in later on in life, this potential which is actualized can be utilized for doing their respective ordained duties for the sustenance of the society. The primary purpose is to unfold, not to mold, which is what we are trying to do. Because there are many biases regarding what an ideal person should be. Rather, the ideal person is what nature intended him or her to be. And accordingly, whatever potential is given requires to be brought out. It is there in the potential form, but it needs to be actualized. And who brings that out? The educators. So the educator does not impose his or her ideas about what is good and bad on the student, nor the parents. Today we find most parents doing that. They want the child to be what they want the child to be.
Absolutely.
Rather than accepting the child as the child is. The purpose of unfoldment of this education is so that they are able to carry out their respective niyat karma, which is their contribution in the sustenance of the society. Because if the society is sustained, then they can survive. So first and foremost, nitya karma for their personal survival, and niyat karma for the contribution in the sustenance of the society. The main purpose of education is the second one.
Perhaps is this why our education environment has become competitive? Because there's so much comparison going on.
True.
And like you said, there is an ideal that we have projected.
Yes.
Of what a student should be or become.
Yes.
Rather.
Correct.
And that ideal is forced
Correct.
on the students, either by the teachers or by the parents or by society at large,
And by the student himself or herself.
because of how they've internalized.
Yes. So many a time they don't accept their nature as it is, try to change it the way they want it to be, don't succeed, and then have a lot of self-negative attitudes. I am no good, I am useless, I am good for nothing, which is also very damaging.
Correct.
So first, you have to accept everybody as they are. And the natures are all have their plus points and minus points. The minus points come out because of the lack of control over the nature. But we have our biases. Like we say, a social person is very good, a social is not so good. Now this is the bias. We say you have to be extroverted, you can't be introverted, and therefore we won't accept a child who is introverted.
Right. And an example comes to my mind from ancient days of Bharat, of Chanakya spotting Chandragupta
Yes.
as a child. And perhaps he was not from a lineage of kings, but he saw some potential in him.
True.
And then he provided that environment and that guidance to bring that potential out.
Correct.
And to make him a king who was a selfless king. So, and today we find a lack of both such teachers who can identify the potential and help unfold, and a lack of ministers and rulers who can govern in such a selfless way. We have terms like Tapasvi Raja. We don't find such role models.
True.
Nor do we find Rajarshis, teachers who would guide such kings on how to rule. So, can you shed some light on this?
See, the primary purpose of life is we have come for our spiritual evolution, which will ultimately culminate in self-realization. Now, this is the entire process. Nitya karma and niyat karma are supportive. That's not the primary purpose. Because unless you are alive, how can you do the sadhana? So, they are necessary, but they are not end in themselves. They are ancillary. Primary purpose is to evolve. And different people are at different stages of evolution. Different people have different paths of evolution. And all are perfectly in order. But today, the primary purpose has become worldly gratification. So, we find people chasing their dreams with limited resources. The availability is less. The dreamers are many. And that brings about competition. Some succeed, some don't. Those who don't feel very bad about it, they go into depression. They are not using their potential for what it was meant. They are diverting themselves. So the primary cause is losing this primary focus of the purpose of life.
So if we truly understand diversity in its essence, that each person is different, and there is an opportunity for each one to not just survive but thrive in this world.
True.
Images that we have in our culture, for example, of Krishna as Vishnu, lying in Yoga Nidra in Kshir Sagar, which is Anant. He's on Ananta Shesh. So there is infinite potential to get makhan out of this, to get butter, to churn butter out of this, churning as an effort. So this lack of resources is because we're all kind of striving towards the same limited resources, rather than finding our uniqueness and bringing that out.
Correct.
So in doing that, the child is maybe too immature, too young, too naive to be able to do that by himself or herself.
True.
How can teachers help? How can we guide the teachers in bringing about this process to fruition?
So that is the second purpose of education, that inculcating the right values in the child. Today, the person picks up anything and everything that is available around. There is no proper mentoring. There is no proper guidance from the parents or from the teachers. As you put it rightly at the beginning, that today it has become a passport to get a job.
But even that they can't get.
Correct.
Because there's competition there also. So whether it's entrance exams or job applications, there's so much competition that they're not even equipped to do that. Let alone solving big life problems like, loss of someone, a loved one, or bankruptcy. Anything could happen in life. But they're not even equipped to solve real life simple problems.
Because of the lack of proper education. If the proper values are inculcated in the child, then we teach the child how to cope up with these inevitable stressors of life.
How to be adaptable.
Yeah, how to be adaptive, how to be resilient.
Resilient, right.
To be able to take the inevitable stresses in your stride.
Inevitable, it's going to happen.
Yes, it's bound to happen.
It's bound to happen.
And in fact, my contention is that the stresses are deliberately placed in life as a learning lesson. We fail to learn from it. The result, because you have not learned, it gets repeated and repeated and repeated. Usual analogy that I give is that when we recruit new soldiers, we don't just send them raw on the battlefront. We train them. An important part of the training process is running the obstacle course. So there's a Maidan with obstacles deliberately created. There's a mud pit and there is a pile of stones and there are trees which are cut and strewn around, and the cadet has to run that course every day because that is the terrain he is going to get on the battlefront. Now if a cadet removes all these obstacles and makes a flat Maidan, will he be congratulated? He'll be admonished. Who asked you to do this?
Right.
The obstacles had a purpose. Life is an obstacle course. We have to utilize our talents to be able to negotiate them and transcend them. What we are doing, we are trying to remove the obstacles or duck under it or skirt around it. And when we do that, we are disqualified.
That's the culture we have created together as a society.
Correct.
That maximize pleasure,
Yes.
minimize pain, and try your best to maximize it. So even when it comes to a small failure in life, children, youngsters, even adults are not able to take it.
Correct.
Are not able to take it in their stride.
Yes.
Failure, loss, even criticism.
Correct.
If anybody makes a comment about them or their work, immediately there is a defense mechanism at work.
True.
So that can also be attributed to, as you rightly put, the failure in the education system, because we have not trained them to see these as obstacles in their facilitating their growth.
Correct.
It reminds me of a quote of Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the well-known philosophers of the West, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. But even to understand this takes a while, because a lot of the students, they give up hope as soon as they face. And as a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, maybe you can share some cases that you might have seen, or what you see in our society when it comes to students not being able to maybe pass a certain exam or get something they want, and immediately they give up to an extent where they are completely heartbroken, and they can even have depression and suicidal thoughts.
True.
To an extent. I was at a station where even in Valsad and Vapi, there are big boards saying do not commit suicide.
True.
So which is real bad news for all of us, for the whole world, that such banners need to be put up. Can you please share a little bit about this from your both research and experience at the clinic?
I had one student who had come because he was not faring well in studies, and he was enrolled for chartered account, and he was doing his articleship, and he was not coping up with it, but there was pressure on him. And when we analyzed his talents, we found that he had the gift of the gab and he used to like traveling. He was reluctant to shift because he said, somebody comes for my sister's marriage and they ask what the brother is doing. If it is said it is CA, then there's something to be taken pride of. Now that CA firm was ready to employ him as a clerk, but clerk, I will not get any recognition. Anyway, after we analyzed his talents, he gave up chartered account and joined Asian Paints. In the very first year, he was one of 3 candidates who got a letter of commendation. So when he came to the right field, he shone, where he was struggling in a different field, not of his choice. Another student wanted to enroll for engineering because his father was an engineer, his brother was an engineer, so he had to be an engineer. And he struggled a lot in the very first year. From that, he liked only 2 subjects. One was machine drawing. So he was more meant for drawing. He had come into the wrong field. So when you analyze the person's abilities and then guide him to travel along that path, then it prevents a lot of unnecessary failures.
So a lot of times there is this notion that it comes in our genes, and we see that also in the world, that a musician's son or daughter is usually a musician.
Yes.
Same is the case with priests or rulers, ministers and so on and so forth. And in our ancient Indian system, there was this concept of varna, which is still applicable.
True.
Varna meaning a color, complexion of the person, in terms of the nature of that person. So some of it is inherited, but then we also see examples like Vishwamitra, who was born as a Kshatriya, but then went on to become a Rishi, or Parshuram, who was born as a Brahmin, but went on to become a Kshatriya by action. So there are these exceptions are also there. So I think the common conception that if this is in my family, I must do this is also prevalent.
Correct.
Plus there is the added pressure because maybe we value that job more than anything else. So we actually don't know if the family members are doing that because that's in their genes, that's their passion, or just because the society at this moment is valuing being an engineer or being a doctor or being a lawyer.
It's a current in thing.
Current in thing, which changes over time. I mean, there was a time when I read that the doctors were not valued so much because they used to just treat patients. This is there in our Puranas. But now doctors are valued and they must be. But can you maybe speak a little bit about these changing value systems and how we get attached to that and force our children to take a particular path even if it's not their nature?
True.
Just because of our value system. What determines our value systems? Why do we engage in this valuation of different duties rather than seeing them all as important?
This is because we see which vocation will get you the most money, and that is why those vocations are valued, or which vocation has a prestige in the society, and that's why those vocations are valued. If you see, our body has so many different types of cells. We have blood cell, bone cell, muscle cell, fat cell, skin cell, brain cell, heart cell, so many different types. Can you tell me which of this is useful and which is useless? Or which is important, which is unimportant? Suppose being a psychiatrist, I want to say it's a brain cell which is important. Then just imagine the entire body made up of only brain cells. It can't even survive.
Right.
So just as the body needs a variety of cells for its survival and functioning, the society needs a variety of natures for its functioning. If everybody in the society had the same type of nature, then the society cannot function. It's not possible.
It'll be crippled.
Exactly. So we have to learn to accept this wide diversity as it is. We have developed an idea of what is good. Picking up from among these, one, we label it, we value it more highly, and we value others more lowly. So it is the imbalance in our outlook to life. If you come to terms with the reality and accept things as they are, because all is well and wisely put. And the arrangement has been made by nature to give us the opportunity for our spiritual growth. We have changed the very purpose of life and misusing that very arrangement for the gratification of our desires. And that's not going to happen. In fact, when you pursue your desires and because of hard effort you do manage to achieve, you don't even know the price that you are paying for it. Because you have gone against the law of nature, the plan of nature. It's a new karma that you have created, which you will have to repay whenever it is due.
And the process must also be satisfying. If it's just goal oriented, that I have to become this, become that, the whole process becomes stressful.
Yes.
Correct. And with your experience of stress management workshops in many states, I'm sure that you might have seen students like this, teachers like this, or parents like this who are complaining about this.
There are so many cases of suicide reported from Kota.
Right, and that's where correct.
That the pressure is too high. That becomes the center for preparing students for IIT.
I mean, I feel that that's a failure of the entire system, the entire country, in the entire world.
Yeah.
Because that's how, we have lost touch with our ancient wisdom.
Yes.
Where, just like we mentioned the analogy about the brain cells and different types of cells in our body, we had Purusha Sukta in the Vedas, where the analogy is of that of Purusha as a body.
Correct.
As a cosmic being. And Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra are different parts of his body.
Correct. And all parts are okay.
All parts are okay.
There is no comparison required.
But there is, this when you talk about holistic, there seems like there are two aspects. One is finding your skill. It could be art, it could be maths, it could be science.
It's true.
The other is the unfolding of deeper layers of your being. So am I hearing that correctly? There seems to be two dimensions to this.
True. Actually, three dimensions in education. One is actualizing the potential, what we have already discussed. Second is inculcating the right values in the child, so that whether he is a good doctor or a good engineer or a good accountant is not important. Whether he is a good human being.
Right.
So first, that is the values that have been inculcated. We don't have that. And the third is knowing the primary purpose of life. What happens is, we have our inner guide, but we don't consult it. What blocks our contact with that inner guide are our own desires, our own disturbances generated from them. Our scriptures teach us kamya karma nyas iti sannyas. So give up your desires. I mean, most of the people today are living for the sake of desires.
And they're amplified by the environment.
Yes.
Social media,
correct,
advertisements. They're just amplified, more
correct,
and more.
And if you are not able to identify what are your kamya karma, kamnas, and get rid of them, karma phalatya. Do your level best and accept whatever the result. So these were the two formula given. How to live in life. There are many more than this, but these are two essential formula. Now who teaches them?
See, it's not there in schools, it's not there in temples, it's not there in homes. So, and it's not there on television or, certainly not on devices.
Yeah.
So the children are bereft of this wisdom.
Yes.
And there are no adults or elders or wise beings in society who can guide them as well. So in terms of what can students rely on? Because today mass media or social media is their kind of go-to. That's their praman,
Yes.
But that's not really a praman, because praman is aptavakya, a reliable authority.
Yeah.
That's not reliable, whether it's fake news or distorted news or whatever it is. And the information, the people who are giving that information themselves have not overcome greed or fear.
Yes.
They're all doing it for their own personal benefit.
Correct.
So you don't have a selfless, wise person or group of people guiding students. So what can students rely on, in this day and age?
True. Today the role models are the actors, cricketers.
Unfortunately.
And our ancient history, our ancient wisdom is not even taught.
It's not taught at all.
At all.
Yeah.
So a person may only stumble onto it. Now if you are consciously going to make an effort to try and tap this ancient wisdom, then we have to turn to the scriptures and imbibe the values enunciated there and mold your life, train yourself how to be able to follow it. Mind you, when you do that, you are going to be out of place. And there will be many people who will be advising you against it.
Correct. Peer pressure or groupthink, mob mentality, all of that will be at work. And this, I feel that in those scriptures, you pointed out, if that is our command, if that is our means to this knowledge, maybe it's a gift from our ancestors, from our sages, that we might not be there for you, for posterity, but our words of wisdom, or rather we will be there for you in the form of our words.
Correct.
Because Shabda itself, is the guru, is the teacher. So even if you imbibe our words, and they're filled with that potency, and you have studied the scriptures, and personally I have also benefited from the study of scriptures. So we can attest to this fact that if we can guide our students back to the scriptures, back to the Vedas, and many thinkers, educators, philosophers in recent times have tried that. Whether it's Swami Vivekananda, Rabindranath Tagore, Mahatma Gandhi, they've tried to bring people back to the source.
Correct.
Because we have lost touch with our past, our tradition, and there's kind of collective amnesia. We don't know who we are in a cultural sense and in the real spiritual sense as well. So maybe from your experience, can you share a little bit about the value, the power of the words in the scriptures?
Initially, when I did my PhD in philosophy, I was very eager to spread this. But I found very few takers. So what I did, I camouflaged it. Though the essence is from the scriptures, I give it purely on psychological basis. And rather than trying to, lure them by dangling what they desire, I used to scare them into accepting it by making them aware of the consequences that follow when you are in pursuit of your desires.
Which is the fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guide them in my psychotherapy and my stress management workshops to come to a state of neutrality, emotional equipoise. What we don't want that, we want a high.
Constantly.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And highs and lows alternate. So both go hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin.
Correct.
Your original default state is peace, which is not what people want. So what is the result of the lows as well as the high, mind you? The damage that is caused by the low emotions is also the same damage is caused by the high emotion.
Correct. Yes.
People don't realize that.
No, and that's a tough one to realize.
Yes.
It comes after some contemplation and on the experiences, because experiences everybody has had, pleasure and pain. That is the nature of life.
Correct.
But some people learn from it, and some people keep on making the same mistakes. Failure gets on our head, and people get into stress because of failure. But success does the same thing.
See, you might have heard of people dying of shock. You might also have heard of people dying of joy. Why? Because the body doesn't know what happened here, joy or sorrow.
And the pride that it brings, that is
the
self-destructive.
arrogance.
It's like slow poison.
Yes.
And the guilt and the blame that failure brings
Yes.
is equally damaging.
Right.
So there's a mantra in the Isha Upanishad which you also are familiar with, that such people who are not directed to the inner self are committing suicide every moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, it says Atma Hano Jana. They're actually committing suicide.
Chronic suicide.
Chronic suicide. Chronic suicide, yeah. And unfortunately, when we hear instances of suicide or depression in our society, those are just kind of red flags of what is actually, that's just the tip of the iceberg. What is actually going on is much worse. Because how can one case happen when already 1,000 people are undergoing that, or in that process, and then you have one manifestation of that.
Yes, see, the suicide is not only a culmination of an extreme dejection because of some stressors in life, but suicide is also as a result of an illness, which is of karmic origin. And the nature's grace is so much that it has given us the punishment together with the remedy for it. The purpose being to help you come out of that illness so that you can go back on track. People take help of those medicines, come out of the illness, but perpetuate the very wrong which begot the illness.
In fact, when you use terms like consequences, karma, I feel like that is the backbone of our culture.
Yes.
The concept of karma.
Correct.
And the counterpart, the concept that goes along with that is that of dharma, like you said.
Yes.
Becoming a good human being.
Yes.
So, and this is never taught in our education system, Chaturveda Purusharth, which is the foundation of education, which is dharma, artha, kama, moksha.
Yes.
And the points that you covered are exactly that. Dharma, becoming a good human being. Artha, to have the skills to earn a living. Kama, fulfillment of whatever you want. And then ultimately, moksha.
That's the ultimate aim.
That's the ultimate aim. So, in this, I feel from our experience of running a school that the students are there in the school, and we try to impart all this to the students. We train the teachers as well in finding ways to impart this, like you said, in modern ways, in creative ways, in palatable ways. They're in the school for 6 hours, the students. Now for the rest of 18 hours, they're at home. True. So the home environment is equally or more
toxic.
actually. Well, so important that sometimes it undoes what is done in school.
Yes.
Or they get mixed messages.
Yes.
They get one message in the school and then they get another message at home, and even if the parents say something verbally, their actions show something else.
True.
So the behavior and the words are not in alignment.
True.
Because I'm sure some parents are also watching this, so if you want to give some guidance to the parents on what they can do to support the teachers and the education system which is going on this alternate path.
True. So ideally we should have some courses for the parents of the students as well.
We have started some workshops.
Because they themselves are not oriented. How will they help get the children get rightly oriented?
That's
it's like the blind leading the blind.
Correctly. Anda niyamana yatha anda. It's said in the scriptures.
It's in the scriptures. Correct. So the parents have to be in collaboration with the educationists. It's not that they have sent the child to the school and their duty is done. They have to follow up. If they find something unusual according to their beliefs, they better clarify with the teachers. Because the teachers are trying to mold them, to give them the right direction. If it is contradicted at home, the child is going to be confused. So for the betterment of the child,
Correct.
the home atmosphere as well as the school atmosphere has to be in tandem.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely a must. In fact, some of them show up or take interest only when the child has not done well.
Yes.
That's too late.
Correct.
Because at that point also their interest is only in the marks, or not finding out why, what exactly is going on. I feel like this questioning spirit is missing. Whether in the parents or in the students, or in the society at large. We take things for face value, and even on exams, and we have tried to change the nature of our education at the school and the nature of exams, but it's mainly regurgitating the answers.
True.
And now with the advent of AI is 100,000 times better in giving answers, in giving even accurate answers. So I think if we don't change our ways of educating, we'll soon be outdated.
True.
Because machines will take over, AI programs will take over, and in fact the white collar jobs will go away first before the blue collar jobs.
True.
Because those are at least mechanical and skill based. So in terms of creativity, what we have tried to encourage at Sharada Prabha is asking questions rather than giving answers. If you can ask the right questions, relevant questions, questions that provoke thought and contemplation, that would be the real sign of intelligence.
True.
Not whether you're able to answer something verbatim from a textbook or not.
True.
Because what happens is they forget that after the exam. Even if they've answered it correctly, they forget it. And it's of no practical use.
True.
So like you said, when it comes to life's problems, whether it's at workplace or in life in general, they're dumbfounded. And then they lose hope, they get broken.
True.
So can you maybe share a little bit about this notion of questioning, which was encouraged, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, in our ancient education systems, and is not encouraged now because it's more about answering. Because maybe the Britishers just wanted clerks and they want people to just say yes and answer. But we might have gotten freedom in 1947, but we're still colonized in that way, mentally. Because we're still in that mode of just answering, saying yes, accepting beliefs without questioning them.
True.
So maybe a little bit about this spirit of questioning and how that can be encouraged in students.
True. So not taking anything for granted, even if it is coming from the authority's mouth, but seeing for yourself at first-hand experience is what will be lasting impact on the child. Otherwise it is just kaha suni baat hai, and it is lost because it is not reused. Now there are basically two schools of learning. One is the classical learning and the other is operational learning. So the classical is Sankhya, operational is Yoga. This is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. In one, you know and you do. In the other, you do and you know.
Very nice. Yeah.
Now, each one is programmed for a particular time. Now, we have to have an educational technique which will cater to both types of learners. What we have is a chalk and talk method. that will suit the one who first knows and then does. It will not suit the other one. For that, you need something hands-on for the person to do something. The project was started for that. But what is happening? The projects are completed by the parents.
Correct. I was just going to say, right.
Or they are outsourced
Right.
to an expert in the field.
Which is so sad.
It's so sad.
It defeats the whole purpose.
It defeats the whole
And then there are tuition teachers who will help them.
Yes.
And the question is, why do you even need tuition teachers? If the teachers are good at school, why do you need tuition teachers? Can the parents not help the children? Can they not spend some quality time? In terms of differences of different personalities, of students, these are two other more, because what we have done at Sharada Prabha is we have introduced activity-based learning, which fulfills the need of those who have to do something to learn. We've also introduced storytelling-based learning, arts-based learning, inquiries-based learning, meaning problem-solving-based learning, and many more that supplement these methods. But play-based learning is one of them. So, can you talk about different types of students that a teacher might encounter, and how different education methods can be used to make it child-centric?
These two are two primary methods, but each child, or for that matter each human being, is equipped with 5 different faculties. And all the faculties are not equally strong. You have a gradient. And usually the child uses the top 2 faculties and usually ignores the bottom 2 faculties. Those 5 faculties are: one is communicative, other is sentient, third is retentive, fourth is rational, and fifth is cognitive. Now, communicative, the child will learn better by listening, talking, writing, reading. These are the communicative processes or functions of the communicative faculty. The sentient will learn through feeling. The arts. I know I mentioned this to one of my relatives. She was a teacher, in fact she was a principal in a college, and she introduced learning methods based on poems, skits. She was teaching maths through these methods.
Very nice, yes.
And she presented this at many of the conferences, and she also wrote a book on those various methods through Qawwali, through drama. Now this will appeal to those sentient students.
Right.
Then the retentive ones are the ones who mug up.
Right.
Rational will analyze, think about it, try to find a solution. If can't find on their own, will ask the teacher. They will try to understand rather than rote learning. And the cognitive through actions. So the operant conditioning will more apply to these cognitive types of people.
So in the methods that I just recounted, if we correlate it to the faculties, which by the way are the faculties connected with the senses of perception that we have?
The senses will be the senses of perception and senses of execution. So the senses of perception will feed the data through the communicative faculty to the person. And the senses of execution, karmendriya, will help the person to execute through the cognitive faculty. The skills will vary within that. The skills will vary within the communicative faculty as well, depending upon which sensory input is more strong in the person. So there can be n number of teaching techniques, but we have just one.
Chalk and talk.
Chalk and talk.
And of course, in between the perception and execution is your inner instrument,
yes.
Yantakarna, which can be correlated to the retentive faculty and the intellectual, the rational
and the sentient.
Yes. So, for example, going back to the methods that we use at Sharada Prabha, the primary one is activity-based learning, which will, I think, appeal to the cognitive people.
Correct.
Then we have storytelling-based learning. Maybe that will be for the communicative.
Yes.
Of course, it has some sentient, rasa as well. Then arts-based learning, that is clearly sentient. And problem-solving based learning or inquiry-based learning is rational. And the generic or the mainstream chalk and talk one is for the retentive, which is kind of the norm right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel that from my experience at the school, it has been an eye-opening experience to see that how fixated we get on the technique also.
True.
You know, and not just on what the child should become, but on how he should become that.
Yes.
And so what we have encouraged is questioning even your methods. And if one method doesn't work, don't keep banging your head against the wall. You know,
True.
maybe take a moment, do some research, introspect, talk to experts, and there has to be a door.
Yes.
But it's just that you are not equipped right now to see that, because your knowledge is limited, and knowledge will always be limited.
Yes.
So, in fact, in Shiva Sutras it says Gnanam Bandha. Knowledge is limited, and that you must always keep questioning your knowledge. But this kind of fixation on what we know and setting boundaries and not going beyond that it has become the root issue.
True. We don't think out of the box.
And there's no curiosity or explorative spirit to go outside the box. It's kind of like a comfort zone, and because it works for everyone, in fact it doesn't work for everyone, but still the way it's advertised, you know, whether it's coaching centers or all these courses that people offer even online, the way they advertise, they only cherry pick the data of the people who have been successful by their method.
True.
They don't talk about all the failures.
Correct.
So true statistics are not given.
Correct.
And then the viewers, the adults, the parents, the teachers, they never question that. That maybe this data needs to be questioned.
Yes.
You know, maybe they're not giving full disclosure on what is exactly is going on. You just have, like, if you look at billboards, just the toppers. But what about all the others? Maybe they were meant to be toppers, and you just facilitated that. But there were hundreds of other students who failed, and but they're not encouraged to find a path of their own. Because if you're unique, your path will also be unique. And the same amount of work will go into creating a path as well, as much as the effort goes into passing a certain entrance exam.
So we need a lot of research in developing these various techniques to tailor-made it to the requirement of the student.
Yeah, to cater it to the nature of each person. There's a lot of R&D, research and development. And in fact, India has kind of faced challenges in that, because now the West has become the prime center of R&D. There was a time when we had Nalanda, Takshashila, and it was full of scholars, priests, learned people, and they used to constantly do research on whether it's different disciplines or different methods. But unfortunately, we have lost some of that, and we have lost the transmission as well. So who can spearhead this project? You know, we can start at the grassroots level also, and from top down as well. So can you talk about both approaches? What can common people do that are watching this in their homes, in schools, and this is for everyone? And what can perhaps the government or the people having certain power over policies can do to facilitate this process? If it happens from both sides, there will be hope. I mean, I try to have an optimistic attitude that it's been 1,000 years since we have suffered this decline. It will take a few years, but things are on the mend. But it requires a lot of cooperation, group work, and personal reflection from each citizen. So something for everyone at the grassroots level and also at the top level, high level.
So if we can sensitize people to the need for such a development, and say those in the position of power, like recently they introduced a new education policy. Correct. So it was definitely broader than what pre-existed.
Correct.
But it still needs further expansion.
Right.
So they are open to it. That is the reason why this new education policy was brought in.
Right. That was a good move.
Yes.
Yeah, positive.
So now if they can be, inputs can be given to them regarding the need to develop these different techniques of learning, that would go a lot of more in the R&D of these techniques, and that can be shared with the teachers, the faculties, who will then apply them. But it's a Herculean task, and it can be done on a large scale if we have this type of support. and also to sensitize the people at grassroots level to be open to such new experiments.
Parents and teachers.
Parents
Yeah.
and teachers.
Yeah, there's resistance to something that they have not experienced or encountered before.
Yes. They only stick to the tried and tested way. And it has tried and worked in a large number of people, but it has excluded
Yeah.
many others to whom it doesn't suit.
So, and that's what I mean when they cherry pick data. You know, let's see the
Correct.
whole perspective.
Yes.
And we're not dismissing that method, we're adding on to that.
On to that.
You know, and
We're
more.
not replacing it.
We're not replacing
Yes,
it.
supplementing it.
Yeah. And that requires a lot of homework from the side of parents and teachers also, from the side of educators, from ministers, you know, a lot of personal investment of time and energy into feeling this cause as the prime cause if we want the child's progress and the nation's progress.
Yes.
You know, if we want more people like APJ Abdul Kalam who are well educated and have the ethics and values
Yes.
that makes a good human being, then our country has some hope and our civilization, our world has some hope. Otherwise, you know, every time we look at the news, it's the newspaper is covered with blood, you know, it's kind of like on a mass scale we're committing a suicide in terms of pollution also. You know, so like concepts of karma and dharma, if they're not introduced, we are so mindless. You know, we're not mindful about our actions, our words. So whether it's a simple thing of throwing plastic, overusing plastic, or motivated by greed, you know, as it reminds me of
Short-term gains.
short-term gains completely. And what Mahatma Gandhi said, that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed.
Correct.
And everyone is prepared by greed and fear. So there are some exploiting that, and there are some that are victims of that. So between the two of them, our society is lost. And one last message for all our viewers of how they can, at an individual level, help and not, underestimate their power or contribution to this cause of education.
First is everybody self-educates themselves. And I would say the presence of an emotional reaction is an indicator what is your hang-up. I urge my participants of workshop to maintain a diary of their disturbances.
Right.
These are the indicators where they are hung up. And they have to unhook themselves from there. So when they do that, they are able to accept the empirical reality as it is and not try to keep on modifying it to suit them.
For sense gratification.
Yes. That also improves the interpersonal relationship.
Yes.
Because by and large we want others to behave the way it suits us. That insistence is gone. So there's a lot of harmony. And the conflicts makes many times a person to withdraw. Not express but suppress. That suppressed material takes a heavy toll on the health of the person by way of psychosomatic disease, by way of autoimmune disorders, etc. So a lot of health issues can be resolved. So our guide to unhooking ourselves from our hang-ups is our emotional disturbance. But unfortunately what has happened, since most of the majority of the people have their own personal hang-ups, most of the people are disturbed and that is why the disturbance is believed to be normal. In fact, it's a yellow signal to rectify yourself. The orange signal are the diseases that they generate. And the red signal, death.
Oh, right. Any death in society. And so we will take a pause here because our conversations will continue. But for our viewers, this is a good message to take home, that if each one of us can work on our own disturbances and overcome them, that will be our contribution to the field of education, contribution to society, to children, and to the nation at large, and to the whole world, to humanity. If we want a bright future for humanity, this is our duty. So thank you so much, sir, for your time and for your wisdom.